Hello, everybody. I am Outwitter. I am a Phobies community mentor and some of All Fears player. And since I was super excited for this new update, the All Hallows Masquerade Soiree, sorry, I figured I'd cover the 9 new phobies and what I think about each of them. So let's just jump right into it with Lenny here, the party crasher himself, a 2-key undead unit with 1 movement and 2 range, what we consider a turret, with 1050 HP, 1050, and 325 attack. Out the gate, this unit is actually pretty good. Obviously, this unit was released early due to internal complications, we'll call it, and so we've had some discussion about Lenny already, and I think Lenny is pretty good. However, I do think the obvious comparison is Unicorn, who has 25 more damage, 100 less health, and traps. And I think because of that, a lot of people are underrating this unit because Unicorn is a lot better. But that's because Unicorn is too strong right now. I still feel like Unicorn needs to be brought in line a little bit. If anything, these guys could swap damage values and they would both be pretty good. But yeah, that's Lenny. I have a tier list here that I'm going to put all of the new units into, and I'm going to put Lenny right into generally good. I think Lenny is generally a good phobie. Now, going into our next phobie here, we have Mazi. Mazi is a 3-key monster who has 2 movement flying and 1 range melee. With 900 health, 450 attack, and 100% leech, Mazi seems to have some questionable stats, if you ask me. Uh, like Alastair, Mazi has 100% leech rate, which only these 2 phobies have, which is a good stat, but Mozzie's pitiful 900 health means it's probably only going to be useful in very early game, where there aren't many other phobies to contest it, there aren't many ranged phobies on the field, and maybe really late game scenarios like with Daisy, or maybe Jackalope or Ted or something. Honestly, I've seen people pretty divided over this phobie. I think Bean of Evil and Man in Yellow have both given their impressions, and they do not like this phobie. And I kind of agree with them, but I do think I will still put Mozzie into situationally great. Next up, we have Octobuddy, a 5-key dimensional unit with 2 movement and 2 range, 1400 health, and 420 attack, which is just enough to one-shot a jar cannon. These stats are not great. You're looking at, I think, 250 less health compared to Cyclops, only 20 more damage. However, the real meat and potatoes here is, of course, the Universal Plug ability, a brand new ability with 2 range, 0 lock, and 1 cooldown that simply plugs an Abyss tile for an entire 3 turns. This seems like it could be pretty useful. There are plenty of maps that have troublesome Abyss tiles, and it could be useful defensively, offensively, for just general positioning capabilities. But at the same time, this unit is obviously worthless, just completely worthless in maps that don't have Abyss tiles, which is the definition of situationally great for me. And I also have to be honest, I don't like having a brand new type of utility attached to exclusively an ultra rare phobie. That's what I loved about Le Cheval and Fantôme. It's that those units were uncommon and rare, so they could just rush right into the meta that everyone could have them. Everyone could use this new type of utility, and we just don't have that here with Octobuddy. Additionally, I do want to shed light on this because I do think that criticism is important. I think Octobuddy looks visually not great. I specifically mean the card art here. Some of you dedicated Discord members may know this, but someone posted an image of this card, just the portrait art, not the actual details on what the card does. Probably a few months ago, they said they got it just from an Instagram ad, and I thought it was fake. Like it looked like a poorly made fake edit to me, and it still does not look very good. I also feel like there's a bit of a mismatch here thematically with it being named Octobuddy, being a supportive unit, but having these piercing evil red eyes still. But that one's like a nitpick or whatever. It's not really a big deal. But I do think that the card art here looks just a little bad. But that is my opinion. That's my criticism here, and that's just what I think. But yes, Octobuddy here will be going straight into situationally great. Next up, we have Preacher, a really bizarre one, a 6-key dimensional unit with 2 movement and 1 range melee. This has 1400 health and 500 damage. That's good damage for this amount, but terrible health. However, this is a truly bizarre card that really, I mean, it stunned me when I first saw it. I couldn't even understand what the ability actually meant. But we have our first toggled ability. So you toggle the ability Sermon, and it plants you in place. You're completely immobile, you have stasis, but you also cannot move yourself. And it emits a cloud in 2 tile radius that dampens abilities. That's what they call it. But it basically pauses them. That's the way that I like to think about it. It pauses these abilities so they can't be used as long as you're in the cloud. This affects friendly units and enemy units, and it's very, very strong. In addition to this, it also gives Preacher 2 attack range. So you shoot all the way up to being a 3 ranger with 500 attack and 1400 health. That is literally just a much, much better Innocuous for 6 keys. And since it has 2 movement, Man in Yellow pointed this out. I watched his video in between retakes for my own video here. Man in Yellow pointed out that because of the 2 movement, you can deploy really quickly. You can get to some nasty spots, and then you set up with this slightly higher health and this potent damage along with the ability dampening, and you just defend a huge radius. And all you have to do after that is just send some extra guys to back him up. And so that's going to be pretty nasty. Like, even without turning off abilities, I feel like this is a fairly good unit. So I'm honestly going to put this unit in possibly OP because I do think it is just that. I could be wrong on this. It could just be really strong, but it is bare minimum really strong. This is a very good unit and definitely a must grab if this ends up being the $100 exclusive offer Phobie. You will not regret it. Next up, we have Pearl, the Sabian variant, a 7-key mechanical unit with 2 flying movement, 1 range melee self-centered AoE, 200, 2200 health, and 450 damage. We're talking about a slightly worse Sabian for 1 more cost here. However, that turns itself right on over to being a good thing when you look at Rejection, its ability. This is a 2 range self-centered AoE ability that does 400 damage for the first tile and then falls off to 200 at the second tile. That pushes everything it hits, which, that's every enemy. This is basically the love child between Blondie and Hebo 2.0, if you ask me, where you have this diver phobie, except it also has this potent AoE push. I can immediately see this being really oppressive in terms of combo phobies, like combo teams, or just on maps with a lot of abyss tiles or lava tiles and stuff like that. Things where Evo 2.0 is really strong, except you have that flying movement to move more effectively and you're immune to being instant killed by abyss tiles. So Pearl is going to be very strong. So she's going straight into really strong for me. That's an easy placement for me to make. Now we have Buzzkill, a very cool looking phobie that I was certainly excited for, but I don't think it does quite what I expected. That's to say the very least. Buzzkill is a 7-key undead unit with 2 movement and 2 range. With 1700 health and 400 damage, you are, along with the terraform ability, you are looking at essentially Mount Crushmore's stat line, I believe with 100 less health, and of course you lose that lobbing. However, the terraform saw ability, while it does have a lock, unlike other terraforms, it has 2 range lobbing for creating and destroying. So the immediate jump here is, oh, this is going to be really strong if you put it with combo phobies, AoE splash, like maybe Hevo 3.0, or definitely Tick and Noxious. Like those are immediately the 2 that I thought of. Tick and Noxious could be really nasty with those, as opposed to, putting them with like a pusher or something. specifically for Noxus, where you go in, you terraform, you blast, and then you push them all away with like 2.0 or something. You just use Buzzkill and Noxus, and you're good. Um, Additionally, you could get some really cheeky traps on units that are in a weird position and just totally block them off from escaping and get free kills that way. I feel like that'll be less common, especially after the first few days where people start to get used to what this phobia can do. They start to watch out for it, but it can definitely be pretty capable. Honestly, this is one of the ones that I've had the hardest time placing, but I think just for that really strong combo factor, I'm going to put it in really strong. Now, last but certainly not least, if you ask me, are the butlers. These were the guys that I was the most excited for. These guys are really cool, if you ask me. These are easily my favorites. So let's get started with Alfred. Now, Alfred is a 4-key undead unit with 1 movement, 2 range. That is a turret, 1300 health, and 350 damage. Immediately, you'll notice, even for a resurrection phobia, which this is a bad stat line. However, the real flavor comes in with the Sneer's pairing bonus, which gives it 200 extra damage if you have another butler. Except unlike other pairing bonus phobies, this actually stacks. So if you have all 3 butlers on the field, Alfred will get 400 damage instead, going up to a mighty 750 attack. I'm going to go ahead and obviously this is going to surprise nobody, but I'm going to put Alfred by himself, no pairing bonus, straight into bad. However, once we pair with one phobie, Alfred goes to generally good. And on top of that, if you get all 3, Alfred is really strong. I want to point out specifically about the really good tier, the a +1 for Alfred. That basically gives you what Benny is to Bowmangles, but for Giggles. So you get a 4-key, slightly worse stats than Giggles, 50 less damage, and 150 less health, but you get Resurrection and Leech, so that is very good. That is plenty useful. And right after that, we have Guillaume. Now, Guillaume is an interesting one because the Guillaume is a 5-key undead unit with 1 movement and 2 range, a turret once again, but 1550 health and 400 damage. That is a little worse than Cyclops, just in terms of health, but as a resurrection phobia, you know, that makes up for it, except, of course, you have the 1 movement. However, the Sneers bonus is for movement. So once you play a single other butler, that is literally just a better Cyclops because you have Leech and you have Resurrection for like 100 less health. So that's pretty nice. I'm gonna go ahead and put Guillaume by himself at mediocre. It's kind of bad side manners, but you trade some damage and a significant amount of health for that resurrection. It's not very good. Definitely worse than bad side, I would say, but it's slightly better than the other butlers by themselves. However, once you play another butler, you shoot straight up to generally good. And once you get the final butler, you have 3 movement with 2 range, which only Hevo Glad has, and technically, you could count Snowball every other turn, but I'm not going to count it. So Guillaume will be pretty mobile and threatening in that regard with all the butlers. However, I'm still going to keep Guillaume even at all 3 butlers in generally good. You could make an argument for really strong, but I feel like the bonus here is going to be less impactful. The final bonus, I mean. So right to generally good for Guillaume. And finally, we have Dolores. Dolores is a 6-key undead unit with 1 movement, 1 range. That is a slug, 1900 health, and 450 attack. This is again a resurrection unit, and the Sneers bonus actually pertains to range. Now, before we get into how good the bonus is, Dolores is going straight in the trash by herself. By herself, Dolores is easily one of the worst units in the game. Even among resurrection phobies, like the Jackalopes, even without their pairing bonus, they still have their own uses, but Dolores, garbage. You pair 1 unit with Dolores, 1 other butler, like probably Guillaume, You get a slightly better Phoebe, but again, this is kind of just a worse bad side manners again. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put with one extra butler, I'm going to go ahead and put Dolores in mediocre. However, when you have all three butlers on the field, you are not ready for Dolores because she will have three range, 450 damage, resurrection, leech, and 1900 health. That is a lot. That is even more than Chuck has as far as three rangers go. She's tied with him for damage, along with having resurrect. So Dolores at max power is indeed very powerful, and she's going straight into very strong with max power Alfred. So that is, of course, all of the phobies in this update. And I did want to comment really quick. Man in Yellow also covered this in his first impressions video, and a couple of other people have talked about it. But it's very, very disappointing that Alfred is an ultra rare. Like, that is the worst decision they could have made because you're talking about a set of pairing bonus phobies, especially Dolores, and who just are not very useful unless you have all three. So you're going to have a pretty pretty bad unit like Dolores. That's going to feel really bad when you just can't complete the trio. You can't fill out this collection. So you basically just have two dud phobies, it feels like. Nobody likes that. That's really sucks. And, older players would well, newer players sometimes feel that way about the jackalopes, where it's like, oh, I have these jackalopes, but I can't even activate the pairing bonus unless I get the Jackalope King, who's rare, who's hard to get. The same way with the Speedolas, where you get Red Speedola, who's Red Speedola is at least decent on his own, but like the whole point is the pairing bonus, but you have to get the rare one, and that's harder. And this is just amplified 12-fold with Alfred. This was a terrible idea. I really wish they didn't do this. They could have made someone else from this update an ultra rare, like Buzzkill or Pearl, and they could have kept the profits from having three ultra rares. Like, this is just really sad. Again, Man in Yellow commented on that too in his impressions video, but I wanted to point out myself because as somebody who is a very big fan of these three new phobies, that is very disappointing. I will say as well, it's also sucks that both of the new dimensional units are ultra rare when dimensional already has the highest number of ultra rares for any tribe, along with just having like half of its units be ultra rare. So it feels really bad for someone like me, where my collection is all of the below ultra rare ones that you can get, which it's not a lot, and most of them have fairly niche uses. So it makes my collection feel kind of lacking, and I'm a little bothered that we don't see a lot of new ones that are not ultra rare. However, the two new ones do seem very strong, so that's at least nice. That is generally a pretty strong tribe in my opinion, and they will fit very nicely into it. I would imagine that Preacher will be all over the place after you give it just a couple of weeks, provided it is a the exclusive offer phobia, which it probably will be. You're gonna see it everywhere. It's gonna be like Billy, where it's one of the really popular offer phobias, and it's just everywhere. Everyone has it in just a little bit. But yeah, that is the 9 new phobias. I was really excited to cover all of these. I have done a couple of takes on this video. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but I hope everyone enjoyed listening to me ramble about this, and I hope you will all take the time to share your own opinions on each of these units down below in the comments. I did keep it pretty short, or at least I tried to, and I didn't go into individual scenarios with certain units, like the butlers. Obviously, their core unit weakness is having one of them picked off, so something like pulls, you're going to want to target Alfred for that, since Dolores is super safe and Guillaume is super mobile. But if you want a longer video that goes into a lot more depth on that, I would just suggest checking out Man in Yellow's video, obviously. But enough about that. I will see you all tomorrow on October 1st.